Julio was only 14 years old, but he had no home, no bed, and most days not even a scrap of food to eat. He roamed the bustling streets of Abuja, barefoot and dressed in the same torn, dirty clothes every day. To survive, Julio scavenged through trash cans, collecting bottles and scraps of metal which he stuffed into a large sack, hoping to sell them for a few coins. Sometimes, if luck smiled on him, a kind stranger would give him 5 naira. Other times, people shouted at him to leave, disgusted by his appearance. But Julio never gave up. Even when hunger gnawed at his belly and his lips cracked from thirst, he pressed on. One hot morning, Julio awoke early on the cold pavement where he'd slept. His back ached, his mouth was dry, his stomach had been empty since the day before. Slinging his old sack over his shoulder, he trudged through the dusty streets, searching for scraps. He found 2 crushed bottles, a bent spoon, and a few tin cans. He smiled faintly, dropped them in his sack, and whispered to himself, "Maybe today I'll have enough for food." He arrived at the market, a noisy maze of shouting vendors, rolling carts, and children darting about with bits of bread in hand. Julio approached a food stall. "Auntie, please, do you have any leftover food?" he asked timidly. The woman snapped, "Get out. You think I cook for beggars?" He moved to the next stall, asking softly, "Even just some crumbs?" The tomato seller ignored him completely, as if he didn't exist. He went from stall to stall. No one would look at him. Some waved him off angrily, others turned their backs. His stomach cramped, but he didn't cry. Then he noticed a group of boys eating roasted corn. One of them dropped a piece on the ground and didn't pick it up. Julio waited until they walked away, then bent down and gently brushed the dust off with his shirt. He didn't care what it was. He needed to eat. But just as he brought the food to his mouth, a dog rushed by and snatched it from his hands. Julio sat under a wooden stand, hugging his knees in silence. "Maybe the garbage will feed me today," he whispered. Behind a nearby restaurant, he searched through the food waste. The smell was strong and flies swarmed around him, but to Julio this was hope. After digging carefully, he found a small bowl of rice and beans, not too dirty, not too spoiled. His heart leapt. "Thank you, God," he murmured. He rinsed the bowl with water from a leaking pipe, sat under a tree and unwrapped the rice with trembling hands. It would be his first meal in days. Just as he was about to eat, a thud startled him. Behind the dumpster lay a woman collapsed, her clothes dusty and her face drenched in sweat. She clutched her swollen belly. She was pregnant. Julio dropped the spoon and rushed to her. Her eyes were closed, her hands trembling, her belly tight and unmoving. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her. No answer. The market bustled on nearby, but no one noticed, no one cared. Julio held her hand. It was cold. He looked at the bowl of rice, his only food, then at the woman. Her lips were cracked, her body weak. He tore a piece of plastic, pinched some rice with his fingers, and gently fed her. "Please, ma'am, just a little. You need to eat," he whispered. The woman opened her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared at the dusty, tired boy. Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Julio smiled faintly. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry. No one helped me yesterday, but I don't want your baby to suffer." The woman cried as she ate, slowly and painfully. Julio helped her sit up and wiped her forehead. She began to breathe more steadily. "My name is Natasha," she whispered. "I'm Julio," he replied. She smiled weakly. "You have a kind heart. I didn't think anyone cared anymore." She pulled a small folded card from her bag. "Take this. It's my business card. Someday, if you need help, come find me." Julio couldn't read all the words, but he saw her name, Natasha. He helped her stand, and she walked away slowly, holding her belly. He watched her until she disappeared. His plate was empty, his stomach still hollow, but his heart was full. He returned to the streets, to survival, but this time he had a card in his pocket and hope in his heart. What Julio didn't know was that Natasha had once been the wife of one of Abuja's wealthiest men. Her husband, Mr. Obina, owned businesses, buildings, and cars. People stood when he entered, but money couldn't keep their love alive. Over time, he grew cold and distant. Then Natasha discovered he had another wife in a different city. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. "I'm a man with many needs," he said. "If you don't like it, leave." She left, 2 months pregnant, with nothing but a handbag and tears. Her bank account was frozen, her phone shut off. For days she wandered the streets, growing weaker. One afternoon she collapsed behind a restaurant and met Julio. Years passed. Julio, now a young man, still lived on the streets. He scavenged metal, slept under bridges, and fed stray dogs. But deep in his pocket, he always carried Natasha's old business card. A taxi rushed him to the hospital. He was unconscious, bleeding. Doctors rushed in. Then a nurse entered, gentle eyes, calm hands. When she saw his face, her breath caught. "Julio," she whispered. She turned to the doctor. "Please, let me care for him, personally." She placed her hand on his chest. "You fed me when you had nothing. Now, I'll fight to keep you alive." It was Natasha. She sat by his bedside for days, holding his hand, whispering to him. "You don't know who I've become, Julio," she murmured, "but you saved me when I was ready to give up." He had given her his only meal. Now, she gave him a second chance. Every day she cleaned his wounds, fed him through a tube, and talked to him. One morning, as she wiped his face, his fingers moved. He opened his eyes. Where am I?" he asked faintly. "You're safe now," Natasha smiled. "You're in a hospital." Julio blinked, confused. I know you. You were pregnant, behind the dumpster." She nodded. "And you fed me when you had nothing. I never forgot you." Julio trembled. "That baby?" "She's alive," Natasha said. "Her name is Zuri. It means beautiful in Swahili. She's alive because of you." Julio couldn't speak. Tears filled his eyes. Weeks passed. Julio healed. Natasha brought him clean clothes, warm soup, and sat beside him every day. One morning the doctor said, "You're strong enough to go." "But where would I go?" Julio asked, voice trembling. Natasha entered with a food bag. "You're coming with me," she said. That night, she took him home, to a modest but clean apartment filled with flowers and laughter. Children played in the courtyard. Julio had never lived in such a place. A little girl with curly hair and bright eyes ran out. "Mama, who is this?" "This is Julio," Natasha said. "Long before you were born, he saved your life." The girl looked at him, then whispered, "Thank you," and hugged him. Julio trembled. "Is this the baby from that day?" "Yes," Natasha smiled. "She's Zuri." That night, for the first time in years, Julio slept in a real bed, with a roof over his head, food in his stomach, and love in the room. He stayed with Natasha and Zuri. He helped with chores, went to the market, and began to laugh again. He even started learning to read and write using Zuri's school books. One day, Natasha said, "I talked to a friend. He runs a recycling company. They can offer you a job." "A real job?" Julio gasped. She smiled. "Yes, it starts next week." Tears streamed down his cheeks, tears of joy. "You didn't just save my life, you gave me a reason to live." Now, Julio wakes up with purpose. He wears clean clothes, eats meals with Natasha and Zuri, and no longer sleeps under bridges. He's not just the bottle boy anymore. He's Julio, a young man with a future. Sometimes those who have nothing give the most, and a small act of kindness can become a miracle years later. Never look down on anyone. The person you help today may be the one who saves you tomorrow.